Friends, Axelrod here, the Confidence Coach. Welcome to the Confidence Zone. This week, I am sharing lessons learned from sciatica. I thought that this would be a good series title because since I had an acute episode of sciatica myself recently over the last few weeks, I've been speaking with a lot of people about it. And inevitably, when I share my sciatica story, someone else shares their sciatica story back, or the case of someone close to them. One person was really helpful to me because her husband had acute sciatica. So this week I have spoken about listening to your body. Listen to your body and then do something about it. Don't ignore it. And then I also spoke about stuck energy. It is from stuck energy or stuck bodily systems that we go into a more acute phase, an episode of something. If we can figure out how to tend to something sooner, then we can address it sooner than waiting till it becomes acute. Something can also go easily from acute to chronic, and we want to get it before it gets to that stage. By the way, I just heard in my head, wow, Susan, this applies to emotional pain too, but that's, I guess, a series for another time. So today's topic in part 3 of this series is rest. Yes. Most of us are not used to resting. Most of us are used to pushing, plotting, ignoring, and just going through. What does Winston Churchill say? If you're in hell, keep going. Well, maybe Susan says, I don't know, if you're in hell, maybe you want to rest for a moment. I don't know, maybe I'll adopt and revise that quote, because surely for a few minutes, I was in hell. And when I simply had to rest. I couldn't do anything else, even though I had other stuff I had to do. And then, there were people around me and I wanted to be better for them and do stuff. But none of that mattered. I simply gave myself over to resting. And so one of the questions I wrote down for this segment about resting is, what expectations do you have of yourself? And if you know me, you know whenever I use the word self, there's always a capital S. What expectations do you have of yourself, or what expectations do others have of you? Now, at the time that I had a bad bout many, many years ago, 15 or 20 years ago, I was full on home, working mother, working professional, young children at home. And honestly, I'm going to have to even think about that. I have all of my journals, but I'm not sure I really want to go look it up. I remember it was a very bad episode, and I have to even think about what I did at that time. And I always come here and acknowledge I'm in a different life stage. I don't have young children, and my parents, I was with them each till the very end, but they're both gone now. I don't have an elderly parent I'm caring for, etc. So the question is, where are you in life? What are you doing? What if you got an acute episode or attack of something? Would you be able to rest? Now, even as I'm saying this, it's coming into my ears, maybe we should talk more about rest. Like, what does rest mean to you? How does rest show itself to you? Do you ever rest? What helps you feel rested? What's restful for you, and all of that? I invite you to consider all of that because for me, resting basically became lying on my couch on my good side. And that was it for hours on end. And every 30 minutes or so, I would get up and walk around to move, because when you have sciatica, you have to move, except in the very first several days of the acute pain, when I couldn't even really do that. So, what expectations do you have of yourself? Can you even rest? Is that like a joke? Like, Susan, are you kidding me? Rest? Well, if that's what comes to you when I'm talking about lessons I've learned from an acute phase, an acute attack of high pain sciatic nerve problem, then maybe we want to wonder and imagine what could rest look like for you if your life is so busy, so full, so you know, like ascribed to other people that rest is hard for you. And then I have a little subcategory today. This is the only episode that I wrote down a subcategory, which is this. How do you show, articulate, communicate your needs? How do you communicate your needs? What if you realize, if you've been listening to my series, that you have something coming on and, maybe you need rest, maybe you need some kind of healing expert sessions, maybe you need to have some time and space in your life to do qigong or some stretching or whatever. How do you articulate or communicate your needs? I say this knowing very well that there are some people who will hear this where honestly it doesn't matter. Your life is so, filled that it's like, you may or may not be able to do what you need. But for others, like me, if I was more articulate about my needs, in my case, I live alone and, there's no one else here. So it's really me, to me, about me, for me. But for you, it may be you to someone else, about you, for you. So what about rest? What does rest look like to you? What would that feel like? What would that seem like? How would that go if you had something where you really needed rest? Can you get rest? Do you know what rest feels like? Because when the body is in this kind of pain, in my case, I'm talking about acute, not chronic. I'm no expert on chronic pain, but when the body is in some kind of acute episode, maybe from a migraine or whatever, it may be like crying out to you, calling for rest. And so if you're watching this video series and you're tuning in today and you hear me talk about the title of this episode, which is rest, ? Yes, ! Then maybe it's being shown to you that you want to think about this, plan for it, plot it out, map it in, communicate it out to anybody in your spheres, so that you can be ready for it if the need should arise. I mean, God forbid you could rest if there's not an acute episode too, but surely if you have an acute episode of a mental, physical, emotional, or type of illness, you are going to need some rest. And so I'm here today to ask you, are you able to rest? What does rest look like to you? What is restful for you? It's not like what I tell you restful is. It's not really what anybody tells you restful is. It's more about knowing your own body, your own sense and sensibility, your own selfness, to know what truly, honestly, and authentically is restful to you. Rest when you have a piece of shit going on in your life? Yes, is my answer. If I can help you with this, friends, to explore this and talk about this, please contact me. I'd really be happy to work with you on this. Take good care. I'll see you again in the Confidence Zone.